Hey everyone, this is Daniel.
And I'm Jun.
And we are
Korean.
American.
Canadian.
Nice.
Hey guys.
Hey Jun.
Hello.
So today we have a special guest. It's another episode that we have a very interesting guest. And yeah.
Not so easy leading the conversation, is it, Jun?
I don't even know how to do this.
All right, this week we have another guest in line with our 2025 goals of bringing more perspectives onto the show. First time I called it a show, onto the podcast.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
We're a show.
How long do you think I need to provide that context, Jun? We're already into end of March, almost April.
I think 1 quarter is good. For
Okay.
Yeah.
We already had three?
We've had a lot of guests. Yeah.
Three guest episodes since this
Feels
year.
like more, but... But anyway, yeah, today we have with us Byeong.
Yeah.
Welcome, Byeong.
Thank you. Hello.
Welcome.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Yeah, so
Thanks for coming.
Byeong I know through, I guess, my wife and your friend from Hong Kong.
That's right.
We're ex-coworkers.
Yeah.
And so when we moved here, she was like, oh, you have to meet my friend. I think she refers to you as like her little brother.
Yeah.
We were really close in Hong Kong and he lives in Korea now. So yeah, we've met up a few times and I thought I've always really enjoyed talking with you. You have really great perspectives and very fun takes. So I was like, come on the pod.
Sure.
So yeah, welcome. Very happy to have you on.
Yeah. Thanks so much for having me, guys.
Young, why don't you just give us a little bit of background on yourself?
Yeah.
Specifically focusing on, I think, the cultural influences, we call it your cultural resume,
Okay.
that have made you who you are today.
Oh, that's so interesting. Okay. Yeah, so hi everyone. So my name is Byeong actually. But kind of depending on where and when you met me, that name has kind of changed, right? So if you met me in like my elementary school days, you would have just known me as BC, right? So we kind of, abbreviate. Because I never had an English name, right, growing up.
I mean, it was Byeong-chan.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so, no, that's right. So I never had an English name.
Or an American name, maybe.
Yeah, or like an American name,
Western.
right? Canadian name.
You'll get there.
Canada is America, though.
Whoa.
Well, we're gonna talk about that.
No, not like Trump-wise, but like, as a continent, it still is North America.
Yeah. And so I generally, I don't know how to introduce myself to people here in what language domain.
Yeah.
But so generally here in Korea, I use my full name, Byeong-chan, right? But so some people in my past would have known me as BC or just Byeong. And then so I was Byeong for majority of high school and then university. And then university is when I started meeting people and they started calling me Chan. Right?
Oh.
Right? So Channy was a big one. And then I went to Hong Kong and realized half the countries Chan, right? So I went back to Byeong and then now here I'm BC. So name is Byeong-chan. I grew up in Toronto in Canada. So my parents, so I was born in Korea and then I was raised in Canada. So my parents moved over in the early 90s. I think we went over in 91.
Oh, okay. You're wearing your Maple Leafs hat today.
Yes, I needed to
Legit
represent,
Canadian.
right? But I haven't followed the Leafs since I left Canada, but I thought I might need to kind of Canadianize myself a little bit.
Wait, sorry, Leafs is a hockey team?
It's a hockey team. Yeah, it's
I
Toronto
see.
Maple Leafs, right? And so that also adds on to the stereotype of Canadians growing up with hockey. Yeah, and then I went to college over in Montreal, which is a Franco part of Canada, and then I moved over to Hong Kong, where I was kind of exposed to Asia, kind of in the first time. So I spent about 10 years over in Hong Kong, and then I moved over to Korea 5 years ago in 2020. Moved over, and then that's when COVID hit, right? And
So you moved pre-COVID.
I decided to move pre-COVID.
Oh, wow,
And then I came to Korea, and then I think a week after I arrived, that's when the whole Wuhan and remember Korea was the second country to get the virus, right?
Oh,
and then
was
that's
it?
when Shincheonji blew up and
Oh yeah, there was a Shincheonji
yeah,
thing.
yeah,
I
remember
forgot
that?
about it.
Yeah. So
was
yeah,
crazy.
and been here since. So I guess culturally, I've kind of had this really weird. It's kind of what Jun said earlier, right? Is as a kyopo, we always identified ourselves as kyopo but non-American. And so the common idea of a kyopo for me has always been American. So like we make the extra effort to be like, no, we're not American,
Yeah.
we're Canadian, right? and then like coming to Korea, I started finding that there are actually more Kyopos, right? That there's actually a larger Australian community, there's a English community, and there's a Brazilian community, like the previous guest that you had, right? So that was always very kind of interesting. But yeah, so that's kind of like my Canadianness, right? Grew up in Toronto, which is the largest city in Canada and had the most amount of Koreans, right, at the time. But I also grew up in a very Jewish community. So I guess like an example is like my high school, we graduated 500 students, right, in my senior year.
Yeah.
And 18 of us were not Jewish.
What?
Oh.
Yeah.
I didn't know that was possible.
Yeah,
That's crazy.
So it's kind of like that small pocket of Williamsburg in Brooklyn, right?
Yeah.
So I guess for me, like I thought you were Jewish if you were white,
That's what you grew up with. Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
And then I went to college and I was like, wait a minute, there are only 6 million Jews in the world, right? And so yeah, I've had like different kind of cultural experiences, right? Obviously kind of being part of Franco-Canadian culture a little bit, and then going to Hong Kong, which kind of made me feel like, oh, you know, I have visible representation now because I'm local, but then I knew I lived in a bubble because I was in a very expat bubble. And then coming to Korea was also just another digest of different kind of cultural, you know, shifts and different paradigms, right? So yeah, so that's kind of who I am, right? Yeah.
Oh, speaking of like the fact that you knew that all white people were Jewish as you grew up, like I sometimes imagine if I were to be like, this is a question to you, Daniel. Have you always thought all Koreans were Christians?
Oh.
Was it very rare that you saw a Korean that don't go to church?
Yes, that's for sure. That was rare growing up.
Yeah.
And that was one of the big culture shocks moving to Korea.
That's what I
imagined.
imagined.
Assuming most Koreans were Christian. But yeah, that's for another conversation. We could get into it today later. I think the churches I grew up with and I think the churches here in Korea are quite different. But yeah.
But I do think like the Korean immigrant churches, right, where majority of us kind of grew up, there was a part of it that was Christian, but there was also a part of it that was like a community center.
Of course,
right? You know, that's where you found community within your immigrant group, right? So I mean, like I grew up in a Korean church, right, all my life as well.
Do you know why that is though? Why did churches become like the? Because I know that I've heard that once you immigrate without going to church, like you're left out of the community.
So
therefore, you don't even know all the information and resources. So you're almost like, forced is a bad word, but there is no other way than to go to church to like be a part of that community, right? But like, I wonder why that is. Like, is there some history behind that, or?
Do you know? I have no idea.
I mean, I think generally churches played a pretty big role in community gathering, right? And so when you do go off to another country as an immigrant, I think just social stratification, you tend to kind of be somewhere that you know, are kind of familiar with. And I think for the immigrant families, they probably feel more comfortable not being part of a religious group than not being part of a racial group, right? So
they need that community.
Yeah, so they do need that community, right? So
Makes
actually,
sense.
I'm a PK, so
Sorry, what's a PK?
PK is a pastor's kid. So like my father was a pastor of a Korean church.
Oh,
right?
I see.
Yeah, in Toronto. So
I should have brought up what I was going to say first.
Yeah.
I was going to say, I think definitely a sizable population of the early immigrants, I think were moving for like a missional purpose. And they were pastors. Yeah. Like even before my parents immigrated, I think my mom's, one of her relatives moved as a pastor church planter, and like they're the ones who helped us arrive too. So I do think there was a sizable population that moved for that purpose.
I wonder if like immigrants in China or Japan, like there must be a substitute of that like community or like hub of information that might not be a church. I wonder what that is. I'm just curious.
I feel like China or Japan might have more history, right? Compared to the mass immigration that happened to the US or Canada, right? So like the 제일교포, for example, like they've been there for a long time, right? So
There are already generations of Japanese and Chinese immigrants.
Makes sense.
I do know all my Chinese friends grew up going to Chinese school, which is like an all-day affair. I don't know if it was Saturday or Sunday, but they would spend the whole day there.
Oh,
It was
wow.
literally an extra day of school. So whether it's playing games together, but also learning about Chinese history and reading and writing. And so, yeah, they very much identified with their Chinese schools, like the Koreans identified with their churches.
Did you ever go to 한글학교?
I did not.
No?
Yeah, that's
Okay.
Can't you tell? I have a lot. There's a couple of things I want to get into before we dive in. I also could resonate with I guess, assuming most white people were Jewish until you moved to college or something, right? I don't know if I shared this on air, but growing up, I thought all Lees were Korean.
Oh,
And
Lees.
so
Yeah.
I remember still very clearly in middle school, I was sitting at lunch and I just assumed every Lee was a Korean person. And then I remember some Chinese guy was like, you're kidding, right? Like you can't be serious. Like most Lees are Chinese. And I was like, no, you're wrong. I'm going to go find out. I'm sure enough, everyone else at the table was like, wait, you're Chinese? You're Chinese? It's I assumed you were all Korean. Yeah. So that was my getting outside of my Korean church bubble growing up.
Right.
Yeah.
There's another thing. The equivalent would be Koreans think all white people are American.
Oh, is that true?
They would know theoretically
yeah.
they might not be, but
Right.
I think that's their immediate mind.
That makes sense because
Yeah.
the vast majority of white people in Korea are from
probably
American military or
right.
something, right?
Yeah.
That's so interesting, actually.
The other thing I wanted to bring up was I also identify that depending on when you knew me in my life, I have 10 different nicknames. And I can place you in my life oh, that was early 20s working or that was high school years or whatever. But Jun, do Koreans have nicknames?
They do.
Oh, they do. Okay.
Yeah. For some reason, my nickname is very boring. Or it wasn't really actually a nickname that everyone almost
Called you by?
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
But some people, they
Oh,
would
yeah.
call me Gom.
Gom?
Yeah.
Like bear?
Yeah. Maybe I have the bear.
Bear face?
Yeah, bear face.
Gomsang?
Oh, did you see the comment? There was a
I
comment.
reread it on the way here.
Oh yeah, you look like a what? Golden.
Unkempt golden retriever.
And I'm like a firm tofu.
Okay. Well, all right. Let's dive into it. Would it be fair to say? Would you be offended by this, Byeong, if I said, growing up, then would you have identified as Korean non-American rather than a Korean Canadian?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think the Canadian experience in itself is by nature where our history starts off fragmented, multilingual, multicultural, right? So
officially as the language of the country, there's two.
Right, it's
French and
Canadian.
English.
Yeah, French and
Yeah.
English. So I do think that there is that extra complicated layer of identifying ourselves as something that we're not, right? Which is non-American,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
It's kind of as a minority, as a Korean, when I come over to the US or non-Koreans and they assume that I'm Chinese, right?
Yeah.
Or I'm Japanese or something, right? Then you know how the Koreans make an extra concerted effort to be we're not Chinese, right? We're not Japanese, right? I think it's kind of similar in that kind of way. So I think Canadians we always had this term called the hyphenated Canadian, right?
Yeah.
Which because we're so multicultural that we are something Canadian, right? So I think in that kind of way we've always kind of had this multicultural identity, right? Yeah, but I do think in a place where there's a vast majority, the community I grew up, it wasn't about me being a Korean Canadian. It was me being just not Jewish.
Yeah.
Right. So there's
That was enough to differentiate.
Yeah. Right. So there's a certain kind of bond that comes together between people who their common ground is that they're not something.
Yes.
Right. And then there's something else, or there's another bond that's about common traits, right? Which I think the latter is a lot stronger than the former, right? So in my context, for example, yes, I hung out with all the non-Jews, but then the moment that there was a small Korean group, I'm ditching the Indians, ditching the Chinese guys, right? And just hanging out with the Koreans, right? So, but to answer your question, yes, I do think that I think that there is that concerted effort of wanting to be Canadian.
Yeah.
So we do label ourselves as Korean Canadians,
Yeah.
right? But I think deep down, I think that there is that sense of like, oh, we're not Americans, right? Yeah.
Did you have a lot of pride in Canada growing up? And do you still have Canadian pride?
Oh, I have crazy Canadian pride. I like it's so unprecedented,
Yeah.
right? But when someone here will be like, oh, this person is a foreigner, right? Or 외국인,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Then I make the extra effort to be like, oh, I'm Canadian, right? But yeah, I mean, Canadian pride kind of goes a long way,
Yeah.
right? And so I think as here in Korea, especially, like as our Canadian culture kind of consolidates a little bit, right? I think that there's more added pride in it for sure. Yeah.
Jun, what's I guess, how do Koreans think about Canada? Are there stereotypes?
Oh,
Are
yeah.
there...
This is so interesting.
Yeah, I'm curious.
Stereotypes towards Canada. I don't think Koreans know Canada well enough to distinguish the difference between Canada and the US as a culture. I mean, they'll know that they're different countries.
Yeah.
Canada, cold, maybe. Like me personally, I've heard a lot of things about it's a good place to live in.
Yeah.
But then other than that, like I don't really know what the difference is culturally. I was just about to ask more specifically towards what are common traits of Korean Canadians that are different from Korean Americans.
Oh, that could be fun. Yeah.
Yeah, that could be pretty interesting.
Before you get in, though, I
Yeah.
want to add on and then let you answer.
Yeah.
Because I still remember the moment, man, well, I think I was like literally 34, 35. And I was talking to, they were Chinese, but an Asian Canadian.
Right.
And I was talking about my, growing up and how much trauma I had being Asian American male in America. And he just looks at me and he's like, Asian Canadians don't have that really. Because at least he told me his perception growing up in Toronto was that, Asians were smart, educated, well off, wealthy. Those are all good things. And so if anything, he never felt like negatively discriminated against being Asian in Canada. And seriously, this blew my mind. I was just like, what?
Yeah.
I don't want to like steer you, but I was just so shocked by that. And I wanted to
right.
hear how you thought about being Asian, being Korean, growing up in Canada.
So I think the Korean American immigration story like precedes the Canadian one by a few decades, right? So I think by the time that there were second gen Korean Americans, I think that they were like first gen Canadians. Right? So even like my parents, they were like early immigrants to the US, and that was in the early 90s, right?
To the US or to
sorry,
Canada?
to Canada,
Canada.
right? And so
Got him.
gotcha.
Canadians just can't stop thinking about Americans. I'm sorry. Yeah.
Right? And so, but again, I think because we're such a subculture that wants to show the fact that we're non-Americans, right? So like we do kind of amplify or hyperbolize our stereotypes, right? So that like the cold thing, right? Like people are like, oh yeah, Canada, a lot of snow, right? And then I'm sure that there'll be a Korean Canadian out there. Like I would say it's like, oh, it's colder than Gangwon-do at any time of the winter. You know what I mean? Like, or like we have super long winters, right?
Yeah.
Or used to snow like 30 centimeters a day, right?
The same thing applies to Daegu. They're like so proud of the fact that they're so hot. You call it Teprika.
Right. Yeah, when I heard that, it was so
I've never
funny,
heard that
right?
before.
Yeah.
But there is definitely a degree of exaggeration.
Yeah.
Because like you want to have like that kind of character.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I resonate with that.
But I think at the end, when you don't want to kind of subscribe into the stereotype narrative,
Yeah.
but then you find yourself doing it, right, all the time.
Yeah.
So, but then just kind of going back to again the other question about growing up as a Asian in Canada, I don't know what your experience was kind of like, but we had like as much as my community was Jewish, like the neighborhood right next to us was super Chinese, right? There are parts of Western Canada, especially Vancouver, that area, where in the 90s, especially after the Hong Kong handover, right? So many Hong Kongers actually ended up going to Canada, right? Just because they were identified as BNO, which is a British national, and then Canadians were a lot more receptive to...
Oh my God, I never made that connection.
Yeah, right?
Because I have friends who, I don't know, this one friend, his mom moved from Hong Kong to Toronto.
Right.
But literally like, almost half of her Hong Kong class is all living in Canada today.
Right.
But I never made like British Commonwealth connection.
Yeah, right.
They felt more comfortable in Canada because they were coming from Hong Kong.
Well, I think the Canadian immigration policy
was
more receptive to Hong Kongers because of that Commonwealth thing.
That totally makes sense. Yeah.
So actually, my last name is Chang, right? And in the early 90s, we actually used the Chinese spelling of Chang, right? Because actually, if you know a Changxi that went to Canada, now they'll write a Jang, right? But if you're old school, it was Chang, because at the time they just thought that it was more common for Canada to receive Chinese immigrants and as Chang, for example.
Interesting.
Right?
Yeah.
So we have some pockets of Western Canada that we call like Vancouver, right? Because
I love these
so many. I didn't know about Paprika. I thought Paprika was very funny, right? But we call it Vancouver, right? Toronto, on the other hand, very super multicultural, right? So we have like every neighborhood, every ethnic subculture has its particular neighborhood in Toronto, right?
Wow.
And so that was always kind of fun, especially like
sounds like a fascinating city.
It's really cool. So like especially during the World Cup, for example, right?
That's cool,
Canada never makes it to the World Cup, right? But
they even have a soccer team.
Whoa.
No, they don't. Just hockey, dude. They only play hockey.
Right? Yeah. But during the World Cup, like every neighborhood would have their gathering.
That is amazing.
So it was always fun, right? That was also a thing. So I don't think that there was ever like a Canadian Asian complex, right?
Yeah.
Because
that's awesome.
I don't think that it was at that level.
Yeah.
Right.
I want to go back to my first question, which was, is there any traits, that differentiate Canadian Koreans from
I don't know if it's Korean Canadian.
But dude, that was
Korean Canadian to Korean American.
That was one of the biggest ones I wanted to bring up. How like there isn't as deep of a complex.
But it doesn't have to be like only self-hate stuff, right?
Oh yeah.
I think for us, like, because we were labeled as Chinese, right? Like significantly, there was a larger Chinese community, right, than a Korean community. So we were automatically kind of like, Chinese, right? So I think anything that was towards the Chinese ethnic group, right, I think we faced de facto, right, as well. I want to say that there are things that are like unique to Korean Canadians, right? Apart from, like we try to define ourselves as not Chinese or American or Japanese or right anything else, right? So that in itself is a Canadian experience. But there's obviously certainly things that are Canadian and American, right? Not necessarily to Korean Canadian, Korean American, but there are definitely stereotypes of Canada for sure. Right?
Have you seen Kim's Convenience?
I love it. I love it.
I bring it up just because when I watch it too,
I
feel like that could have taken place in LA or like anywhere in America. So I've met a ton of Canadian Gilpos before as well. In addition, besides you, and I never feel like there's much of a barrier or difference at all. Except for that they have like this quiet confidence that I wish I had. I think Americans have that loud confidence. Like if you're from LA, New York, you're like proud to be Korean, blah, blah, blah. But I think at least the Canadian Gilpos I've met, we're Korean. It's not a big deal. Like we like being Korean, but it's not here or there, right? Whereas I think, again, if you grew up Korean American, but not from a major city, you have a complex.
Yeah, I think so. I think that's a pretty accurate kind of description. I think, again, being so multicultural, right? There's no requirement to like try to assimilate. So the entire community doesn't try to think like, you're American now, right? So for us, it was like, like we could coexist as a Canadian Korean, as a Canadian Chinese, right?
That's so interesting. Yeah. Wait, do you happen to know like a rough demographic breakdown of French Canadians versus non-French Canadians?
Oh, like the French Canadians is like in Quebec or
just
in
overall, I guess. Yeah.
Oh, in Canada, I'll say the Franco community is a very, very small community,
Oh.
right? It's actually very small, but they have large representation just because of history.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
I'll say that there are more Indians and Chinese people now than there are French speakers in Canada, right? Yeah.
The reason I bring it up is like I never thought of, again, in America, I guess I just bundle all the Caucasians kind of
Right.
together.
Right.
I know that's not true, right? Irish, everyone
Right.
everyone will take Jewish, they'll take issue with that statement.
Right.
I think a lot of people just bundle Caucasians together
That's
into
right,
a
yeah.
super majority, 75% of the population,
Right,
right?
right.
Whereas I suspect in Canada it might not be like that. Like French are their own unique part of the Caucasian
Yeah.
group, right? And yeah, it does feel, when you describe it this way, it feels more multicultural at a basis than at least how I think of America.
Right. So I think multiculturalism and coexistence
Yeah.
is a big part, right?
That's interesting.
And I think that goes back to what I was saying earlier, was because the country was founded by two warring countries at the time, right? So there had to be some kind of compromise. And the big compromise that came about was coexistence, right? Whereas in America, it's just like,
Yeah.
you become America,
Yeah.
right? Like you pledge the allegiance to the flag, right?
Interesting.
We don't have any of that, right?
Wow. Do you learn French as you grew up in Canada?
Yeah, we do. So French is a requirement until 10th grade.
That's crazy.
Yeah, until 10th grade. And then it becomes an elective. And there are French immersions, right? So there are certain parts that are French immersion. Obviously, if you want to be a federal worker, French is a requirement, right? And so, yeah, I think yes. The short answer is yes. Yes, you do. Yeah, yeah.
Is there like a dialect that Canadians speak versus like the main? Can I say mainland?
Mainland French.
Oh, you're asking if
the
Canadian French
French,
sounds
yeah.
different from French French.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh,
there definitely is.
Okay.
Because the French that came over to Canada that evolved into the Quebec French, it never evolved, right? So it's kind of like the immigrant family
Yes.
that went over to Canada,
yeah.
and we're just stuck in the 80s and the 90s, right? And then they come back to Seoul and they're like, what the heck? Why
Yeah.
are they putting cheese on bokkeumbap now, right? and I think that that's very similar to the times where Franco-Canadians kind of came.
Yeah.
So a very good example of this actually is the term to like open the trunk, right, in the back. So in French, they'll say ouvrir le coffre, which is open the trunk. Whereas in Quebec, they'll say débarrer le coffre,
Wow.
which means debar, because a long time ago, like actual trunk had bars on it,
Yeah, yeah,
right?
yeah.
So they'll like remove that,
Interesting.
right? Or
So you basically, Canadians speak what, 1980s, 70s Quebec French.
Canadians will speak, to be more accurate, Canadians will speak 16th century French. Right? Yeah.
Wow, that's crazy.
This goes back to like the Qingdao beer theory.
Yeah,
where,
yeah,
like,
yeah,
if you
yeah.
don't have the originality, like then it feels like
You're stuck.
you don't have the
Yeah.
authority to change.
Yeah.
So
that's
that's
right.
very interesting. Yeah.
What are your perceptions of America? Because I know
Wow, that's a loaded question.
Americans have very strong perceptions of Canada.
Right. But I think the American perception of Canada is an afterthought, right?
It is. It's
It's kind of like we play a footnote.
I mean, you play hockey.
Yeah.
It's cold, like June said, but you're very nice and friendly.
Right.
And you like poutine, which is gross, stuff
Right.
like that, right? I think it's very simple.
I'm offended, right? So like things like that will offend me.
Yeah.
I also know that you guys have very clean pronunciations. Is
That
that a
we-
thing?
Like no accent.
I've never heard that.
That's what I heard. No.
Oh,
I didn't think that I had an accent
we didn't bring this up earlier around
I
Korean.
know.
until Americans told me that I had an accent.
Oh,
right?
interesting.
But yeah, I think the oh man, that's a super loaded question, right?
Okay,
that's
okay.
like going back to the history of Canada, right?
Yeah.
But without going to that, obviously it's the big brother or it's like the unfriendly, warring, like violent
Yeah.
trading partner, right? It's like the Kunhyong or you know what I mean?
Honestly, I've never heard that. Maybe I've never asked a Canadian about this.
Well, I don't know. I at least feel like, again, going back to finding our identity as like non-Americans,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So because culturally, right, you guys are bigger cultural exporters, right?
Uh-huh.
Just bigger market, just in everything. So
Yeah.
so is there like a, I don't think there's a negative vibe until like politics kind of got in the way recently.
Yeah,
right?
recently it's been
but-
very touchy. Yeah.
But I think growing up, it was just always you somehow import the American culture, but you kind of relabel it as a Canadian thing.
Ah, interesting.
Right? Yeah, has always been kind of our thing, right? Yeah.
There was another thing where I think most Americans, I mean, healthcare. I think one of the biggest differences between the countries, at least, is Canada. Canada.
Oh my God.
Canada's more socialist, right?
Right.
And so it was always a thing with, their drug prices are cheaper.
Right.
Like maybe you should go there to get LASIK surgery because it's
Right.
half the price. And so prescription drugs, everything is just more affordable.
Right.
That's the other thing. And I think, especially in the last decade, honestly, a lot of people are like, can I get my Canadian citizenship? I want to move there.
Right.
Leave America in a sense to go to Canada.
Right.
I don't know how that feels for you because that must be different than how it felt like for you growing up, right? Maybe not.
Like, yes and no, right? I mean, I think I've always asked my dad this. I said, if you had a choice of going to Canada or the US, where would you have gone, right? Because obviously he didn't have a choice, so he came to Canada. But he would always say that if he had a choice, he would have gone to the States, right? And I think just, again, it kind of goes back to Canada. Like, our population is smaller than California, right? Smaller than Southern California, I will say, right? And so,
Is it 30 million?
Yeah, it's just under 30 million.
That's what I thought. Okay.
Yeah,
Oh,
right?
wow.
And so...
It's like the size of
Seoul Metro.
Seoul, yeah. Right? It's 경기도,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Basically. Yeah, so Canadian reception has always been friendly, right? Inviting, receptive to different cultures, right? Stuff like that. So... And then there's that like breakthrough where you're like, actually Canadians are kind of racist too, right? And like they're so rude, right?
Are they?
Yeah. I mean, I think because Canadians, we also self-label ourselves as like super polite, super nice, and then when we have these one-off encounters, right? You're like, oh, that doesn't fit the Canadian narrative, right?
Oh.
And then we walk away being like, they're probably American, right?
Yeah,
Right?
probably.
Yeah. So.
Any other Canada things before we move on?
What are Canada things?
Yeah. See,
Besides
again, just
the
afterthoughts, right?
Byeong, did you grow up playing hockey? Are you amazing
Yeah.
on ice skates?
I'm not amazing, but I mean, like we all did grow up,
Okay, yeah.
playing hockey
On a frozen lake, did you ever do that?
I didn't do that frozen lake thing again, but I mean, maple syrup is a big Canadian thing, right? I mean, like these are stereotypes, right? Us being nice. There was a really famous commercial a while ago called "I Am Canadian," and it's this guy that just kind of like compares U.S. and Canada. And that like it just really took off, right? And I think it's kind of like re-emerging once again because of the political climate. But Canadian things like ice hockey was a big thing, healthcare was a big thing, right? That we like to label ourselves peacemakers. We were known as peacemakers, right? And Tim Hortons. I don't know. Have you been to Tim Hortons?
No, I haven't. I
Well,
know that.
oh,
it
they're
opened
in
up
Seoul now.
Gangnam.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
is it still there?
Yeah,
It feels like they're not doing so well.
yeah, because only Canadians will go. And
Hey, I went. I like Tim Hortons.
yeah, and then it kind of goes back to like, oh, I forgot that Canada had like Timmy's wasn't that great coffee, right? And then you're like, why am I paying 5,000원 for coffee that used to be $1, right? But Tim Hortons is like a big thing,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
All right.
Roots
Roots is a big thing.
clothing brand. Have you heard of Roots, Jun?
Yeah, it was pretty popular in like the late 90s and early 2000s randomly.
Oh, in
but
Korea too.
I don't know if they still exist.
Oh, but
Yeah,
it was
Korea,
trending in Korea.
Yeah, it was trending.
That's surprising.
When I was
yeah.
like elementary school, middle school, yeah.
Right. I mean, I am wearing an Arc'teryx. Arc'teryx
Is that Canada too?
Canadian.
Ooh, tell me other.
Lululemon's Canadian.
I did not know.
See?
Interesting.
Wow.
Kid and Ace
Yeah.
is Canadian.
Canada Goose.
Canada Goose is obviously Canadian. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
I mean, Arc'teryx was like a big one, right? Until like
I really didn't know.
I didn't know
Uh,
either.
yeah,
Lululemon also.
I would have assumed Lululemon's like straight out of LA. I don't know.
Oh,
Yeah,
really?
yeah.
Yeah. I forgot what else is Canadian. Yeah, I
there
mean,
any
we do have
Famous Canadians that people might know,
here.
or like around the world.
Oh, around the world. I mean, here in
Interesting.
someone like, so a very close university friend of mine also went to school with Henry. Do you know
Oh,
who Henry?
the celebrity.
Yeah, the celebrity, right?
He's
so he's Korean.
Hong Kong.
Yeah,
Canadian?
so he's
Yeah.
Chinese Canadian. I think Sam Hamilton is also Canadian, right?
I thought he was Australian.
He's Australian, but I think he holds a Canadian citizenship.
Oh,
yeah, right.
interesting.
Just globally. Oh, I don't know. I think there are a lot.
Who's the most famous Korean Canadian
Korean Canadian?
that comes to mind?
apart from me. No. Sandra Oh.
Oh, Grey's Anatomy?
Yeah, Grey's Anatomy, right? So
Yeah.
funny story about Sandra Oh, like our parents know each other, right?
They went to church
Right?
together.
Right? And so apparently Sandra Oh used to babysit me, but I don't know.
You can never quite trust those stories your parents say.
right? Who else is a famous Korean Canadian? Oh man, I think Sandra Oh is like the only one that comes to mind. Tiffany, is she Canadian?
Oh, from a K-pop group?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Oh, 소녀시대.
Yeah.
I
Tiffany?
don't know.
Tiffany?
She has like a Valley Girl vibe to me.
Yeah, maybe she's American. Yeah. Anyway, 최우식.
Oh,
It's
that
Canadian.
All right. Yeah, before we move on from Canada, maybe
Yeah.
do the Canada Tourism Board a favor.
Oh.
Byeong, what's your favorite thing about Canada? Where's your most beautiful spot in Canada?
Yeah.
What's the must-do thing for Koreans visiting Canada?
Yeah, so
I'm excited.
So I think two things come to mind. The first one is, do you remember Dokkaebi?
The
K-drama.
The K-drama.
Yes, Gongyu, very
yeah,
famous.
Gongyu and Kim Go-eun, I think it was, right?
Yes.
So they filmed that in Quebec.
Oh.
And I remember when I went back to Quebec after this. So I went to school in a place called Montreal, and Quebec's a few hundred kilometers away. And so I went, and I remember I got into a cab, and the cab driver would say, 빨간 문, right? Red door,
yeah.
right? And I was like, I have no idea what you're talking about, right? And he's like, oh, aren't you Korean?
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah. He's like, then how do you not know the red door? Every Korean that comes into this cab
Visits the red
goes to
door.
the red door. So I looked
What
it
is
up.
it? I haven't watched it.
So
Do you know what it
apparently-
is?
I did watch it, but I don't remember. I have a bad memory.
So apparently there's a scene where there's like a red door that they filmed in Quebec,
Quebec.
right?
Oh, I see.
Quebec is a super beautiful place, right? Especially fall foliage is a big thing.
Is that close to New England? Is that the one?
That's close to New England, so that's Eastern Canada,
I see.
right? And then on the western side, there's a place called Banff.
oh, yeah.
And Banff, Lake Louise, Moraine Lake, all these places are super beautiful. And when I took a year off to travel, I've been to a lot of different places in this world, and I came down to two conclusions. The first one is that there's no place like Korea once it comes to living. It's so convenient, it's so comfortable, whatever. And I think the second thing is, I think Banff, if God had his own country on earth,
Yeah.
it'd be in Banff.
Beautiful nature.
Beautiful nature. Once you see the Canadian Rockies, the Alps will not look the same, the Pyrenees will not look the same, the Andes will not look the same. No mountain range will look the same as Banff. So I'll say those two things are probably the biggest Canadian places to go.
Wow,
Cool.
you
Yeah.
really make me want to go there.
Oh,
Sold it
you
very
gotta
well.
go, right?
Banff.
I think hopefully I'll make it this summer, right? And
Is Banff on the east side or the west
it's
side?
on the Western Canada.
Western.
Yeah, yeah.
I think I've been there as a kid.
Yeah.
I don't remember anything. Yeah.
No, Banff is super beautiful.
Yeah, I have to be honest. I'm
Yeah.
going to offend you. I've heard of Banff a ton.
Yeah.
It's good for skiing too, right?
Yeah. So Whistler and that area is all.
I assumed it was an American national park. Yosemite,
Wait,
Yellowstone,
Up
Banff.
until now,
Yeah, I've been to Whistler.
Yeah.
I didn't know it was part of Banff.
you thought it
Anyway.
was in America?
Yeah, I thought Banff was in America.
Wow.
Also, I didn't know the Rockies extended to Canada.
See, okay, so this is mind
I
blowing.
just
I'm
don't-
gonna
I-
look at the camera and do this.
No, I'm
right?
serious. I just know the Rockies, Colorado Rockies, right?
Right.
I didn't. I guess if I thought about a map,
Right.
it would probably extend to Canada.
Right.
Is Banff part of the Rockies too?
Yes.
I mean, that makes sense to me.
Right.
But just in my mind, I never stopped to think.
Okay, so as a Canadian, we did not know that America had the Rockies,
Oh, yeah.
right? So.
Hey, see, it
So
works
this
both
is like
ways.
a
It works both
yeah,
ways.
it works both ways, right? I was like, Denver, like
That's the Rockies too.
I just
Yeah.
thought that was like a tier 4 American city, right? But I didn't know that it was. in the
Hey,
middle.
we have a listener from Denver.
Hey, no, but now Denver's definitely tier two,
yeah, tier
1.5.
2, of course,
It's
of course,
pretty
right?
much tier 1.
Vale,
yeah.
right?
Wait,
All
is there an official tier system for cities?
No, we're just joking.
no, right?
I think the only S tier city is like what, Maryland, Silver Spring, Maryland, DMV, Washington D.C.
Yeah, but I did not know. So like, I didn't know that they were American. Rockies,
See,
right?
yeah.
It's the same as like I heard like Swiss people when they see like Italia has the Alps, or
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
they're like, do you have the Alps? I didn't know that you had the Alps there.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. So definitely. But do you know that old song? Like, did you grow up with this? Like, this
What
land
song?
is my land.
Yeah, of course.
This land is... Okay, so...
California
to New York
Island, yeah.
Right? So we have our own version of that.
The same melody.
Yeah. So it goes,
But for Canada?
this land is my land, this land is your land.
Yeah.
From Bonavista, Vista, which is Eastern Canada,
Oh.
to Vancouver Island. From the Great Lake waters to the Arctic Circle to the Great Lake waters. This
Wow.
land was made for you and me, right?
Yeah.
And then I
heard the
learned that it
American
was
version.
the original, was the American version.
Oh, is America the original?
Yeah, and I was like,
I didn't know.
this blows my mind, right? This
Why
is-
did they have to use the same melody?
Right? But this like the same. This kind of goes back to the Canadian thing about importing American culture and then making it
Making it-
Canadian,
Ah.
right? Right.
Interesting.
So
I wanted to move on from Canada, but
Yeah.
one more. Are there any like Korean Canadian fusion dishes that are like popular?
That's a good one.
yeah.
Do you
so,
put kimchi on your poutine now?
Yes.
Oh, no, stop.
Wait, by
No,
theory, it sounds amazing. I haven't
Right?
had it yet,
Oh,
but
poutines. I
but it's
just don't
like it's like
it.
kimchi tacos basically.
Yeah.
No, it's not. What?
Yeah. No. Or like kimchi fries. Right?
Kimchi fries.
Yeah,
With
kimchi.
gravy and cheese curds. Sorry, I just don't like poutine. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Because
I've tried it
if
many
you
times.
imagine poutine,
I've tried it many times.
poutine is like a 느끼한 food to begin with. So if you
Uh-huh.
put kimchi in it, I think
cuts
it'll-
the grease.
Yeah. Ooh,
But I don't think that there'll be
kimchi
anything
poutines.
that's uniquely Canadian fusion, uniquely Korean Canadian fusion.
Mm-hmm.
I think like maple syrup, because that's like it could be a replacement for like
굴.
yacht
Yeah.
or 굴, right? Whatever, right? So
You're just putting maple syrup, replacing Korean honey or
yeah,
whatever.
yeah, right. Yeah. Apart from that, I can't really think of anything else that's uniquely Korean Canadian.
Kimchi poutine.
Yeah, kimchi poutine, man. That's the thing.
I'll try it. I'll try anything once.
Yeah, yeah.
I've tried poutine many times.
Really? And
always
it never
like, okay,
worked?
Clear my mind,
Yeah.
clear my palate,
Yeah.
fresh ice, fresh taste buds.
Ah, man.
I don't know why. Yeah.
Ah, man. Okay.
I want to like it. Trust me. I want to like it.
What's
but
the thing that bothers you about it? The texture.
Is it the cheese curds?
I think it might be the cheese curds. Yeah.
Oh, he doesn't like the smushy.
Also,
Smushy
gravy.
texture.
Gravy's like, what is it? It's like savory on the. I don't know. Putting gravy on your fries also just feels a little off.
right.
Yeah. I want something just like, it's maybe sweet, too sweet for me.
It's kind of
Yeah,
like
so-
탕수육 if you think about it.
Yeah.
So this is a very interesting fact that I do need to kind of plug in here a little bit. So Thanksgiving is a huge part of American culture, right?
yeah.
But we have our own Canadian Thanksgiving.
That I knew.
Yeah, and so
Is it the same day?
No, it's actually early October, and the history behind it is also very different as well, right? Some people kind of put it to like harvest, and then so Americans do post harvest, Canadians did it like pre harvest, right? Whatever, right? I don't know what the exact background kind of is, but I think that there are like certain like Canadian, like we don't have like cornbread. Cornbread is not.
Oh, you
It's
don't have
not.
cornbread.
Yeah, it's not a like Canadian Thanksgiving staple, right? Spinach, like cream spinach, is not.
Not,
right?
okay.
But like we do
Yeah.
our turkeys and stuff like that.
What's
right?
the spread like for Canadian Thanksgiving?
Canadian Thanksgiving? Well, obviously there's turkey,
Okay.
right? And then we do pea meal Canadian back bacon.
Ah, yes, bacon and peas.
Yeah, right. No, so pea meal is a Canadian back bacon. It's
Well, that's the type of bacon.
Yeah, it's a type of bacon that comes from the back of the pig. So, yeah. So apart from that,
Yeah.
I like those two are like the main things, but everything else I think is probably
Mac and cheese.
mac and cheese,
Okay.
right?
Do you do like
KD.
mashed potatoes and gravy?
Did you guys ever call it KD?
What's KD?
Kraft dinner?
No.
Oh.
I've never heard of
The
that.
Kraft, the company Kraft.
Yeah. So we call it like mac and cheese. We
Like
call
all
it
the
KD.
craft stuff you put together and that's your dinner.
No.
You specifically call mac and cheese
Dude,
KD.
KD, right? Yeah.
Never heard of that.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, so weird. Yeah.
But no cornbread and no cream spinach.
Yeah. Well, those aren't staples, right? Yeah.
Did you grow up putting kimchi on your table too?
I put kimchi on everything. Right? So I feel like that's like the super
course you
Korean
should.
part of me.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So like my mom used to make kimchi at home,
Oh.
right? And so like our bathtub.
Yeah, I
Right?
told you in the podcast.
No,
we use
yeah.
we use our
For kimchi?
bathtub to
Yeah.
to the brine it.
Yeah, brine the
the
cabbage.
brine. Yeah, right.
We
that
never
was a
did
thing.
that. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
You not make kimchi at your
We did
house?
make. I do recall my grandma making it sometimes growing up, but never like in big batches. Yeah.
Wait, I have one question about
Yeah.
poutines. Do you guys have the jingmok pumok controversy for poutine gravy sauce?
No.
It's always-
Is it always
yeah,
pumok?
It's
always
It's
pumok.
always pumok.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So jingmok thing was like a cultural, like mind-blowing thing for me when I first got to Korea, right?
But are you okay with the sogginess of the French fries? Do
I
you
think
call
that's
it French
partly-
fries in Canada?
Yeah.
Okay.
Why? Because it's a French form of
Yeah,
calling it
No, you
just fries.
because you guys are like the British influence. You can call it chips.
Oh, that's true.
Yeah. Yeah, so I think Canada, we uniquely kind of import things from Europe and Americans. So there's always this hodgepodge of different terminology that we use that are more European than Americans and more American than the Europeans,
Ah, I
right?
see.
Yeah. Of which French fries.
So you guys are okay with the soggy French fries?
That's part of the experience. That's part of it. Yeah.
Okay.
I do have to agree with June. This conversation makes me want to live in Canada more than before.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, you really paint like a beautiful, multicultural, accepting
Right.
country.
Right.
Which I think it's true. I think that's the reputation is very much earned. That
Yeah.
Canadians are more welcoming and nicer and kinder overall.
I hear it's changing a little bit.
Yeah.
Right. So I recently went back to Toronto for my best friend's wedding, and I didn't like it. There's no
chong?
there's no charm, right? And there's no there used to be this charm about Toronto, right?
It's the world.
Yeah.
I do
and-
think it is. You're right. Yeah.
and I think especially more so with the political climate, right? And the just how integrative the country has become. I think it has kind of decayed in a way to a certain part that I don't have the nostalgia anymore, right? Yeah.
And no family there, right? So
I mean, I have relatives there,
But no
right?
direct family.
Yeah.
that'll come up later. We'll ask you about
Yeah.
living and stuff like that.
Right. Let's move
Finally, we can move on from
on. Canada to Hong Kong.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I graduated right after the GFC in the financial crisis, right? And so I did not know what I wanted to do. And as a poli-sci lit major, there was not a lot of choices, right? But I eventually found a job in finance, and I thought I was going to go to New York. And I think that's when I realized actually I can't go to New York, right? And they're like, oh, so would you consider going to Asia? And I was like, yeah. And they're like, well, do you speak Korean? Because if you do, I think that'll be an added, plus over there.
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, completely. Did not speak a word, right? And like I distinctly remember this. I was asked, do you know what the difference between a bond and a stock is? And I
In Korean or in English?
Like in Korean.
Uh-huh.
And I verbatim regurgitated what Wikipedia said.
Yeah.
And they're like, we know you got that from Wikipedia, but you seem to know, or you seem to have a good head, right?
Yeah.
머리는 좋다고, right? And so I was like, yeah, okay. And they're like, yeah, you don't speak any Korean, do you? Right? And I was like, no, I don't, right? But then they hired me.
Wait, how's your Korean so good now then?
I think I learned a lot of it.
어디 좋아? Didn't you hear?
Yeah,
I
very
have
well,
like
right?
zero accent.
Right. So
Although I heard it for a very short time.
So actually, I never had official Korean training, so I didn't go to 한글학교 either, right? But I think just growing up in a Korean church,
feel bad.
hey, he was born there. He was born
어디
there,
좋아?
right? Yeah. Right. But because my parents also they worked in a very Korean context, right? So they never learned English, right?
So you spoke Korean at home?
Yeah. So
Okay, that makes a huge difference.
So I spoke Korean at home, but it was it was like the awkward Korean, right? Attaching ing to Korean verbs, right? Oh, what's Oma doing? Oh, she's tackling the dishes,
Yes,
right?
Konglish,
yeah.
yeah.
And then I never had Korean friends until I went to university. But when I got to university, that's where I started having Korean friends. And then I think in Hong Kong they're like, yeah, so this guy got hired under the Korean team, but he speaks no Korean, so we need to give him official Korean language training, right? So I learned a lot of my Korean actually in Hong Kong, right?
Ooh.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, and so that's how I ended up in Hong Kong. And then I was in a very expat bubble in Hong Kong, right? So Hong Kong it has an expat bubble, a sizable expat bubble, and then you have the local culture of which, if you're in Hong Kong, you're probably working in finance and law or in international schools, right? So those three are the only kind of people I knew for the last 10 years of my life,
Yeah.
right? So I don't know how to deal with like and tech, right? So like I don't know how to deal with like designers. Right? Like
do you
I've
deal
never
with
met a
designers?
designer before
So
in my
difficult.
life, right?
Yeah.
Or like people who do music, right? Like never had. So all my friends were bankers and lawyers. But then that also means that you're in a very particular bubble, right? And because Hong Kong is a financial hub here in Asia, you know, I think that that's where you get exposure to different Asian cultures, right? And I think that's why you kind of stay in Hong Kong, right? Because like the work is more fun, right?
Did that like Hong Kong Canada relationship also influence you going to Hong Kong?
Not really. I did do an internship in Hong Kong at the Canadian consulate, and I think like the people that I met before during that small summer, they were all Hong Kong Canadians, right? And so like I had a certain kind of community there, but I didn't have any other influence, I feel, apart from just getting a job, which was hard to come by, I think, back then, right? So,
Yeah, what was that move like overall, and how did you like your time there? Because
So I never thought I was kind of part of the community, right? Because, and I think that kind of goes to this expat experience, right? About like how integrated I am to a particular community, to the local community, right? I think my Korea move would have looked a lot different if I came directly to Korea. But because I went through Hong Kong, I was used to crowds, I was used to bad air, I was used to, and so, and like the heat is unbearable in Hong Kong.
really,
Yeah.
is it tropical? I don't.
It's
haven't
subtropical, but it's like super humid, right? And it's small, right? So I lived in a apartment that was 7평, right?
7?
Yeah, 7평 for 300만 원, right? At the time it was around 18K Hong Kong.
Crazy. Yeah.
And that for me was like an affordable place, and I had a banker salary, right? And so I think that those were kind of different challenges, right? I also had a really great community that I kind of, that's how I met Joyce, right, and stuff, right? So that was a church community. But yeah, I mean, like the whole move there was very difficult because like I can't move, right, for example, without relying on a Cantonese friend to translate, especially if there were services that required, locals to get involved, right? And so like everyday life was at a high level, English speaking, right, bilingual and whatever, but then
A lot of local population doesn't speak English.
yeah.
I would
it's
not.
not
have
it's
guessed
not as bilingual as everyone thinks.
Yeah,
it
I
is,
thought
right?
I would not have thought that.
Right.
Yeah.
So restaurants, right, and they rarely have English menus, right?
Oh, interesting.
And dim sum, like yes, if you are in central Hong Kong or on Hong Kong Island, that's where like majority of expats live, then yes, there's definitely that. But on your everyday, like if you go to the market, like I have so many stories of like struggling in the market, and like buying things I don't want to buy, right?
Because you just want to say yes instead of admitting you don't know.
Yeah, exactly, right? So like charading like different parts of the body for like meat, right? And so that was a big thing. Another thing was, this is how I got to know our mutual friend very well, was during Myeongjol, right? So Hong Kong has, the great thing about Hong Kong
Sorry,
is...
what's Myeongjol for? our
Myeongjol
listeners?
is high holidays,
And
right?
for me.
Yeah. So your 설날 or your New Year's or Chinese New Year, for example, and I'll be without family, right? And so being adopted into a family, which this friend really kindly did, that was a big thing, right? But that's when you knew that you were not part of the local culture, right? When there are big family gatherings. So like Sunday evenings are always reserved for family lunch, right? And so like I'll have Sunday dinner alone mostly, right? Things like that I think was like a big shift change. But then it was good because it kind of eased my move into Korea, if you so will, right? Because there was still that bilingualness, right? It's not as hierarchical, right? And there was no expectation of you knowing certain things about Hong Kong, right? But then you also saw visibility of people that look like you, right? Not Korean, right? But like mainland Chinese or Cantonese local Hong Kongers, right? Who are your seniors at work and whatnot, right? So there was definitely no glass ceiling, right? In terms of work, right?
Yeah, that's what, I guess, one thing I wanted to ask more pointedly, what did your Canadian friends think when you moved? Because I remember one of my good closest childhood friends growing up. He moved to Hong Kong as well for work, and everyone was like, "What? Like you do that? When are you coming back? Like how long's it for?"
Yeah.
It just seemed like this crazy thing, right? No one leaves America.
Right.
Why would you do that?
Right.
Again, I'm not in a finance background. I understand it is a huge finance hub in Asia. But just the idea when he did it, like, I don't know, 10 years ago, it just felt wild. Right?
Yeah.
So I don't know if you got a similar reaction, like, what are you doing? How are
I
you coming
did.
back? Yeah.
I did because a lot of my high school friends, they like born, grew up, they married into, you know, other high school, you know. So for someone to leave Toronto, right? They're like, why would you do that, right? But then again, I was never kind of part of that neighborhood, right? As much as I thought. So a lot of my childhood friends, I don't know. A lot of my university friends, when the move actually happened, my school was very international, right? So actually, we knew at the end of 4 years that we're all gonna go in different
all
places,
over the world.
all over the world, right?
Interesting.
So I would say I have a college friend in almost every major city in the world, right? So during like my 1 year off, like I always had a bed, right? No matter where I went.
That's cool.
But you know, there's no reunion of that, right? So the reaction was like, oh, Hong Kong, yeah, you know, I mean, he's Korean, he wants to do finance, so it was a natural thing for at least my university friends. My childhood friends, already going to Montreal from Toronto was like a move away from them, right? So I think in that kind of way they were
That
just
makes
like,
sense, yeah.
right? So when I graduated from that, they're just like, yeah, natural progression, right?
I think Canada's multiculturalness comes up again here, right? Because it is common, let's say, for people to emigrate, leave Canada, even though you grew up there, whether it's to the States or some other city, country, whatever. I honestly never felt that way growing up in the US. It's like, well, maybe you'll go to a different city, or where are you going to go work in the US?
Right.
But yeah, really, like, I feel like I grew up not super abnormally.
Right.
But the idea of someone leaving the US for work really felt crazy. Yeah.
Right,
It's
right.
like, oh, that's so different, so unique.
Right.
And it's only for a short time, right? You are coming back.
Yeah, I actually told my dad I'll be back in 2 years. Ended up staying for 10.
That's so interesting as a Korean, because Koreans can't wait to leave the country. Everyone's like, if they're leaving, it was like, oh, 부러워. Like, I wish I can do too. So that's a very different mindset.
Do you think that that's still a thing now? Because when I first got to Korea, I learned this terminology, 헬조선, right? Where people like couldn't wait to leave.
헬조선, man.
Right? Yeah.
Why
then
are you so excited?
It's such an interesting topic to talk about, don't you think?
Okay.
And we've never brought it up on this
It
pod.
almost
right?
looked as if you're proud that it's
Oh, no.
like, yes.
No, I'm like, no, because that's a very common term. Especially,
Right.
I'll let you talk, I promise. But it's such a common term, especially amongst expats. It's like, oh, Koreans hate it there. They just call it Heljosan, whatever.
Right.
And I also had never heard it before moving. But we haven't talked about it on the pod. Yeah.
Okay.
But yeah,
So
no, I
about
just
Heljosan.
feel like people want, like, they can't wait to get out, right? And I think that you and I were in a very fortunate position where, you know, like we could kind of use that to our advantage, right? Like, I'll never have a sense of belonging here in Korea, but I'll also kind of be like, I could also use it to my benefit, right? I could be a foreigner when I want to be a foreigner, and because I had this opportunity to exit, it doesn't seem as 숨막혀 or as
답답해,
right?
You're stuck.
Yeah,
You can't
right?
move if you want.
So, like, if I was in that position, I probably would label this place as 헬조선, right? But because I'm not, I think that there's that like breathing room, right, for it.
Interesting.
But are you saying it's changing now? 'Cause that
Yeah,
was your point,
so I was gonna ask, like, don't you find that it's changing, right? Because actually, when I speak with people my age now, they're like, yeah, I mean, like, until I have kids, I probably won't consider leaving, or like, I don't want to leave, right?
So Jun, what is the etymology? Like, what are the origins of the Heljosan term and movement?
I don't know what was this, when and how did it start. I don't think there was like a very specific event that triggered this word, but it's because I think like the competition became like, I think there was like a tipping point where everyone was like, oh, this is so like, competition's too fierce, like I can't get a job, and like it's too hard to raise kids and stuff like that. And that, I mean, somehow coined the word 헬조선. But it also relates to, I don't know, this might be an unpopular opinion, but I do feel like Korean people tend to blame the situation more. Right? Like the reason why I'm suffering so much is because of the situation and not because of like myself or something that I can
control.
Yeah, something that I can control. I do think that Koreans tend to blame the situation and context more than other nationalities. And also maybe it's because by nature it's a very collectivist society and everything's so connected. And therefore you don't just see the problem as just like one isolated thing. You have to see it in like a very interconnected manner. And therefore you have to start blaming the entire country. And therefore if you want to break out of this system, you just have to leave.
Right.
There's no way to like cut all the strings and just like solve it on your own kind of. Yeah.
Interesting.
I mean, Jun, you could leave Korea probably if you wanted to. You had options in the past, but you're choosing to live here,
Yeah.
right? So I think that at least is, one data point. But
It's also, I think, because Korean people have a certain fantasy towards what is outside of Korea, and me having experience of living in the States for a total of 6 years, I think I do have a bit more clearer idea of what the reality is like when you're as a Korean living outside of your country. So, and therefore I can have like this comparison and like a better understanding of the pros and cons of each country. So that's why I always think that, and I still think that Korea is not so much of a bad country to live in as a Korean. I don't know if you're a foreigner and non-Korean, but as a Korean, I think it's still like compared to like, think about all the other countries in the world.
every country has its problems.
Yeah, and it's like I feel like I'm so fortunate to like if I were to be randomly assigned to a country, like how many countries are there in the world or whatever, and have to live there, I think like getting chosen to live in Korea is almost like winning a lottery to me, I think.
Absolutely.
You could have a lot worse.
Yeah. But might not be a popular opinion amongst other Koreans.
Wait, so you think that that's an unpopular opinion among Koreans or among
Koreans, I think.
among Koreans?
I guess, do you feel like the general sentiment that Korea is like a modern, hell landscape? Is that increasing, decreasing, staying the same?
That I thought was interesting when Byeong brought it up, that it's not so much like the tendency tends to mitigate these days. Is that true? Maybe it is.
It would make sense to me just because globally, I mean, Korea's stock is rising, at least from a foreigner's perspective.
Right.
People are wanting to move here, live here, travel here, right? More people are now vacationing here. I think even more than Japan now. It's just like, oh wow, Korea's like cool.
I think there's a thing where Koreans started to call themselves a 선진국, a developed country. And that concept started very recently, and it feels so weird to me even now, because throughout my whole lifetime, as like I was born in like mid 80s, growing up, we were always positioning ourselves as a developing country, and always comparing ourselves as like 선진국, like 선진국 is like this, 선진국 is like this. We are not.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and
so
only starting from like, let's say 5 years ago, we started defining ourselves as a 선진국. And I think that changed a lot of like the perception of what our country is like. And also the reality has become like much more modernized, and like we do feel like it is a 선진국 actually. So I think that word somewhat made their concepts change a little bit.
Do you feel like at a macro level, at least? This is very interesting because it kind of goes back to my Canadian thing about not something else, right?
Yeah.
So back then it was, we're not 선진국.
We are not,
right? But now it's like, no, we're Korean, right? So I think as Korea kind of started getting more soft power, right? So cultural exports and stuff like that, like more recognition out there. I think that there's probably that like, we're Korean. Korean is more of a common denominator than like, we're not a 선진국, right? So I think that there might have been like a societal, transition.
I think so. I think so.
Too.
Having some pride in being Korean now,
and also
rather than shame.
And also like Korean people naturally are very good at comparing things, like comparing me myself to others, like in a individual level, but
Yeah.
also in a country level, right?
Yeah.
So now that like we're starting to compare our country to other countries, now
Right.
I think they're starting to. I mean, that's also why they started calling it Joseon,
Yeah.
because compared to other like 선진국s,
Right.
we're like such a not 선진국, right?
Right, right.
And it's so hard to live. But now that we define ourselves as 선진국 and comparing ourselves to other country, we're starting to figure out, oh, it's not that much of a bad country to live in.
Right.
Even though the reality hasn't changed that much,
Right.
maybe their perception could have changed a little bit.
That's so interesting. Yeah.
Can I ask, like, I want to ask more because I just, again, the term is so used.
Right.
It's so commonly used, right? But I never actually quite understand. I can understand pieces of it. But what specifically are they referring to when it's like so hard to live, right? Because it's not talking about infrastructure. It's not talking about healthcare. It's not talking, like, I don't know what it's talking about. Is it becoming very rich? Because that's a luxury. Getting rich feels like a luxury, right? But at least from my perspective, living day to day, if you're not overly ambitious, you don't want to accumulate wealth, it's great. So that's what always got me. It's like, what are they complaining about? In America, you get hurt, you literally go in debt because you can't afford the hospital bill, right? Or in America, you could get shot. Or like, there's all these things. Your house getting broken into, right? There's no rule of law in certain places that I would say that those don't exist in Korea. So that's where I was always a bit confused. Like, what are they so? And I, before you answer, I think my perception was just like, man, they're just so greedy in a sense. And I know greedy's wrong, but they just want to be wealthy.
Yeah.
I can't break out of my economic status or whatever. That to me is not hell, right? That to me is like, oh, you're ambitious. That's great. Mobility's hard. I get it. But day-to-day living's pretty nice.
I think it's because everything is relative, right? And in a society where everyone looks the same and comes from the same culture, it's hard not to compare myself to others and see someone who's wealthier and well off than me and thinking that I could have been that. Whereas like if you're coming from a very multicultural country, it's like the culture is so different that it's very difficult to think that I could have been that, right? Because it's like fundamentally so different. So I think this homogenous society makes comparison that much more easier and convenient, and starting to let you think that, oh, why can't I be that? Because we grew up in the same country, speaking the same language, had an upbringing in the same culture and household. Like, why can't I be that? And that constant comparison just always makes you feel less than what you have. It's like Instagram, right? And you see like all the people who are posting the things that are like the highlight of the week or highlight of the month, and you keep on seeing that and comparing that to your life and seeing like, why can't I have that? And now expand that to reality in society. If like you're living in that Instagram culture where you,
So it's visible.
Yeah.
It's visibility bias, right? Kind of.
Yeah.
But I also think homogeneity plays a big role in it, right? Because after the war, it's like
We're all
just everyone was just like
level playing ground.
Yeah, right. Level playing ground, and so the only way that you could make your life stand out was through economic means, right? And so I think being homogenous means that you're part of the crowd, right? And the only way you could actually be distinguished from that is through, I think, in Korea was socioeconomic status, right? So that's why I do think that there's that whole derivative culture that comes out of that, right? Is like words like elite, right? Or things like that. And if you're not part of that, then that becomes a rat race, which kind of feels like Joseon, right? In a way, where you feel like the system is against you, right? And you're like, oh, there's nothing that I could do that could actually get me out.
Can I add another speculation? Is because I think in all mainstream, like if you go into the mainstream of a certain society, it's always very competitive and always very 답답해 and 숨막혀, right?
Yeah, I mean, rat race exists in the U.S., right? Everyone complains about it.
But I feel like when Koreans, they moved to the US after like not born there, but as a Korean moved to the US, like they feel that sense of liberation. But I think there's a trade-off in which like you're not part of that matrix and you're accepting that, and therefore you feel a sense of liberation. But at certain points you understand that you're not part of like that society.
Right.
Yeah. you're kind of like the outsider. Therefore, like
in America.
yeah, it's 편해, but you quickly realize that you're not mainstream, right? So I think, but if you go into the mainstream of US, I think it's equally or not, or maybe even more 답답해 and competitive.
Yeah.
Right? But in Korea, if you're living as a Korean, you're just like automatically like
Part of it.
enrolled.
Yeah. You're already part of the race.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Would you say, like your average typical Korean, do they recognize, let's say, that like their day to day is not so bad relative to the world, let's say, not relative to richer Koreans?
As an average Korean,
Yeah, I mean, they wake up, go to work, come back. I mean, that rat race exists in every country in the world, for sure in America. But I think people, it just doesn't seem so all-consuming as, again, it might, at least from my perspective, it feels like Koreans think about their day-to-day.
I think for you to objectify your environment
Yeah.
very effectively, you have to understand like what others are like. But if you like just grew up here and everything that you know and lived in is just this, like it's very hard to really think that. Of course, like in theory, like they have the internet and you can see like compared to like very unfortunate environments in other countries, right? We are
I'm even comparing to America.
see
Like, I think day-to-day survival in Korea is easier than day-to-day survival in America.
yeah, see,
Maybe that's
things
crazy,
like this
but that's
coming
what I
from
think.
American
Yeah.
would be very shocking to a Korean. But that already is like an enlightenment to Korean people.
Yeah.
But I think your average Korean, I mean, but by default, like it's really hard to objectify like your situation because
Of
like you're
course,
living
yeah.
in it. Yeah. But I think that word again, that 선진국
Yeah.
word, like sort of helped Korean people objectify what we are. Yeah.
Hey, like we made it.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
we are like officially classified as like
Right,
you're,
right.
you're a very developed country.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's so interesting.
As they say though, comparison is the thief of joy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do think that comparison culture, it's natural, right? Homogeneity, equal starting point after the Korean War. I get it.
Yeah.
But it's just a killer for happiness and joy.
Yeah. No, it really is. And I think it does play out because there's no end to that. Right? Like
Of
there's
course.
no end to greed, right?
Yeah, in America
Like,
too. There's no
yeah,
end. You
right?
just like
And so
you gotta opt out of that.
yeah. And so I think that's what's kind of I think when I think about my cousins who grew up in Korea and then my cousins who grew up abroad, the big comparison for us is language and how English actually brings you to the entire world market, right? And so
that's
it's
true.
kind of like being in a well, right? Or being in a small pond. But then they feel like the moment that they learn English, that opens up
Yeah.
like just the other entire part of it, right? But once it comes to like goods, right, and stuff, I feel like Korean goods are good enough, and like there's no reason for us to like go abroad to like buy things anymore.
Yeah.
Everything's here, man. Right?
Yeah,
That's true. Like, literally, if I go travel to
Yeah,
other
yeah.
countries, like nowadays I realize there's nothing really
bring
to
back.
bring
Yeah.
back.
You can already have it.
Yeah.
Which is kind of sad in a way.
And delivered to your house in a few hours.
Hey, you know what they say? Be careful what you wish for. You might get it.
Yeah.
I mean, Korea, you are now a developed country.
Right.
Yeah.
You got to stop striving and
Right.
feeling inferior or whatever. But I think this was a good way to transition. So I will just say, all of us sitting here, we have a great amount of privilege just because we have so many choices available, and we can't opt out, right?
Right.
Like it's easy for me to live here, and even if I face a lot of bad things, let's say, I can always leave, right? Same with all of us here. So I definitely want to respect that, but at the same time, I do think, Byeong, you had mentioned off record before we were coming, just like it's so refreshing to be able to opt out of Korean society and culture when
Yeah.
you want to.
Right, yeah.
I don't know if you want to talk about that more, but
Yeah.
I just wanted to preface, like, this is coming from a place of privilege.
Yeah.
We recognize that.
No, absolutely.
But yeah,
And-
it is good, right? You can play your
Yeah.
foreigner card,
Yeah.
play your Gopo card. But yeah, I don't. Did you want to talk about that?
I think I play it to my advantage in every aspect of my life. like to the point where I feel bad about doing it,
Yeah.
right? So even something like being stopped on the street right? Or of like if people want to try to like panhandle something, or like they want to sell me something, or they want like cults or whatever, right? Then I could just be like, 저 한국말 못해요, right?
Yeah.
And just like walk away, right? Or it'll be, I think people are more forgiving if they know that I'm a 외국인, right? So if I am a foreigner, then they are a lot more forgiving. So if I do something that's out of cultural context, right? 소개팅, dating, right? Like whatever it is, right? Then I could be like, oh, I didn't know because because I'm a 외국인, right? And then once it comes to like super Korean things, right? Like expecting that someone calls me hyung, for example, right? Like that, I could hammer down and be like, hey, I might have grown up outside, right? But I'm super Yu-Gi-Oh, right? Which means like super
Yu-Gi-Oh mean?
Confucian.
yeah, like Confucian values, right? So like
I heard Yu-Gi-Oh, right?
Oh,
right?
Korean War?
Yu-Gi-Oh?
What
The
is-
Japanese anime?
Oh, I don't know
Oh, Yu-Gi-Oh! Oh my
What?
gosh, I just yeah.
what that is. Yu-Gi-Oh is
okay.
yeah,
Korean
other
War.
word for Korean War.
Yu-Gi-Oh?
Yeah.
The Korean Japanese card game is the other word for the Korean War?
No, Yu-Gi-Oh.
Oh,
because
Yeah,
it was
Yu-Gi-Oh! Yeah, it
June
started in
25th.
June 25th, right?
Cut. We'll cut this.
Yeah.
I'm so confused.
But just kind of going back to that,
Yeah.
you know, like yes, it comes from a certain level of privilege to actually not subscribe to one part, right? Or having
Exactly.
to
You
be subscribed
can
to
pick
one
and
part,
choose
right? Yeah, to whatever
what
is
you
my
like. Yeah,
benefit,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
Now, when it comes to being forced to having to do or be a part of one particular community, right? Like for me, I'm super Korean until I realize that there are things that I can't do because I'm a foreigner, right? So like
what?
like getting a bank loan, for example,
like
right?
technical stuff.
Yeah, technical stuff,
Yeah.
right? And so like I'll apply, right? And they'll be like, oh, can you
Input your 주민등록
yeah,
번호.
right. And
Yeah,
they're like,
yeah.
oh, sorry, we don't have a 5 at the end, right?
Oh, yeah,
so,
yeah.
so things like that, right? But yes, I do use it to my advantage, right? And I try to suss out whether this person will be more receptive if I play the I'm a 교포 or 외국인 card,
Yeah.
or whether I would play the Korean card, right?
You can be more selective than me, right? Like June even said your Korean was pretty good. Like
Yeah.
you couldn't tell immediately.
Yeah.
I can't pretend to be
Right,
integrated,
right.
but I can always opt out. Which anyway.
So I think that there's a certain kind of liberty that comes from that, right? Now, once it comes to expectations,
Yeah.
right? I think that that's also a very different thing, right? So for example, like in the company that I used to work for, like our interns, right? Like they want to start off their career in a startup, right? Whereas in the general population would want to start their careers in, you know, as a 공무원 or as 대기업 or something, right?
Could you translate for our
Oh, sorry,
listeners?
공무원 is
And
a
for me?
public
Government
servant.
worker, yeah.
It's a public servant,
Uh-huh.
and or a public employee, right?
대기업 is a large
대기업 is a large
conglomerate.
conglomerate, right?
You just told me that earlier.
Yeah, right.
Oh, I thought you were pretending not to know.
And so these are coveted jobs in Korea, right? But I think that we're getting to a stage now where, you know, it's okay, right, for a recent graduate to want to start in a startup, right? Or take a year off as a gap year, right? Things like that. So when I used to travel, like I found all these young Koreans were traveling.
Oh,
and
really?
I'm just like, what are you doing here, right? And they're like, oh yeah,
Get
you
back
know,
to school.
yeah,
Go-
right.
go
Like,
get a job.
Yeah, like a little part of me was like, oh, why aren't you working, right? Like I at least worked 10 years, right,
Yeah,
for
yeah.
me to earn the spot, right? But you should be in school. But as I was having these conversations with
Yeah.
young people, right, I'm starting to see that they are starting to kind of make their own individualistic choices that are not in the mainstream cultural expectations.
Yeah,
Right.
that's great to hear.
Yeah. And so when I play that awkward card, right, I know on the other side of that coin, I would never have a sense of belonging. So like I would never feel completely rooted here in Korea, right? Or I will feel as a certain outsider,
Yeah.
right? But I could also use that to my advantage,
yeah.
right? Which I think is kind of like forgiving, right, in a way.
I think it's just, I know that Byeong, you described that you have an excuse because you grew up in a certain way, but I think Korean people can definitely learn from this, because if you expand it out, every individual is different, even if they grew up here. And so I think I wish Korean people can start understanding that in an individual level, everyone is fundamentally different. So you don't have to follow the routine.
Right.
For instance, I mean, I had my education in the US, but I mostly grew up in Korea. The thing that I feel like helps me better break out of the routine is because I have this understanding that there are a lot of instances in my life that I didn't follow that thing that others do. For instance, my college major was civil engineering, but I like completely discarded that and went to like an architecture major.
Right.
And then I completely discarded that and then went into tech.
Right.
Like that thing, if like some other Korean like father or parents would see it, they would like say, you should never do that.
Right,
Just
right.
follow the route, right?
Right.
But I like in my life, I made choices deliberately to like break out of that routine. And it makes me feel like I'm already very different. So now I feel like I'm more liberated from that system. And I feel like, but everyone has that a little bit in themselves. So I wish that Korean people understand that you don't really have to follow that routine. You're already very different. Like you don't have to be a kyopo to have that excuse to opt out of things.
Right. Yeah. So I think it requires a certain amount of courage, right? And what I see and what I hope for younger Koreans is that it is okay to not subscribe to that, right? To the mainstream narrative, right? And yeah, I mean, I do hope that once you start making your own way, right? That life is gonna throw certain things at you, right? So
It's hitting home for me just because the first thing I think about when I hear like, oh, why don't kids just opt out or take their own path? It's like parental expectations. And as a father, even though my oldest kid is only about 10 years old, I think about that a lot too. It's like, oh, I'm really trying to force them down this path of like, do well in school, you know, go to a 4-year college, get a good job, be stable, be independent, right? And I just like, I don't know. I feel like that's how my life worked out. It worked out for me. And it's so hard for me to think like, oh, what if they don't do well in school?
Right.
Or what if they don't want to go to college?
Right.
Or take a gap year? Or like, it's just like that's where it's hitting home for me.
Yeah.
Like, how do you guys feel about the parental expectations playing in?
But before that, I want to ask you something. Do you feel differently for your first child and other child?
Of course, yeah.
Because I feel like the reason why I could live the way that I kind of wanted to.
I was going to bring this up.
Is because I think my parents have certain expectations to my brother.
Your older brother.
And then they view me as like, because my brother was actually very successful in that, like following the routine. Like, I think they sometimes view me as like a freebie.
Right.
Like, oh,
free spin.
The first son did everything that we expected, so you do whatever you want, kind of.
So they had no expectation on you, kind of thing.
Exactly.
Right? Yeah.
So when I when I choose to do whatever I wanted to in grad school and then totally scrap that, even though it was like very expensive to do. They didn't really say like you can't do that because of this and this and this. It was like, oh yeah, if you want to, we support that. And I think that helped a lot. But when I see my brother even now, I feel like he's kind of pressured in like trying to fulfill that expectation.
Is it explicit pressure or is it self-invoked?
This is really hard to say because I never lived his life. Maybe he felt very explicit pressure. Probably did. In my point of view, it really didn't look like that, but I can't speak for him.
So I was going to bring it up because I suspect that did play a role, and you having very supportive parents in this for whatever reason, right? Maybe they're free thinkers themselves, or in this case, they had your older brother to pile that onto.
Right.
But for my case, I do feel more of that towards our oldest. To be honest, he's our only son too. I have a son and 3 daughters. So I don't know if it's the birth order playing a factor. I don't know if it's gender playing a factor. But yeah, it is. And for the record, if he ever listens to it, sorry. We're figuring it out with our oldest, right? But Byeong, because you've lived a non-traditional life too.
Yeah.
Do you feel like your parents were supportive of that? Are you the oldest or youngest?
Yeah, so I have an older sister, right? So actually, I was gonna bounce this idea off too.
We're all Maknaes.
Right? Yeah.
Maknaes.
Maknae, right? But
Doing whatever you want.
We're so free.
that's what we're podcasting on. Right?
Living our lives.
Yeah, I think it does play a role, certainly, right? Because my older sister, I mean, she was also a high achiever, right? So I think that she kind of subscribed to that as well. Whereas, like, for me, my parents were just like, oh, like, just graduate.
Low expectations.
You know what I mean? Like, just get into school and graduate, right? But then I ended up going to a good school, right? And they're like, oh, just get a job. It's fine, right? Like, you don't need to subscribe to that. Whereas for my sister, it was very like, oh, you should consider this school, that school, blah, blah, blah. But, so I think that's where like the terminology K 장녀, which means like the Korean oldest daughter, right? Kind of comes from as well. Because there are certain expectations. But again, very much like you, Jun, I was a freeloader, right?
Yeah.
So like, but then I ended up at a good job, right? And I think so like my parents were like always surprised that I did what I actually did, right? Because they're just like our expectation was for him to just like graduate, like got decent education, went to like a decent company, blah blah blah. And so like every time I make these out of order decisions, right, then it doesn't come back to me as much as I think that it would. There was a guy that I met, 동갑, same age, in South America somewhere, and he SNU grad, works at Hyundai, just like the typical
poster child of
poster
Korean
child,
success,
like father is a professor.
Oh, nailed it.
Father is a professor at KAIST, right? So just like really stand up, right? Typical guy. And so he was in South America, and I was there like I was there just traveling. He was there for a very, very short amount of time, right? Because people who are usually in South America are people either with no money but they have time, or they have no time and they have money, right? I had both, right? So that's where I met him, and I encouraged him to leave Hyundai and to join a smaller company. And so when he finally made that choice, he used me as the excuse, be like, hey, like I met this guy, right? Blah blah blah. And so like he told me that his dad gave him such a hard time, right? But now he loves his job. He's doing very well in it, both financially successful, getting married soon, all these great stuff. But yeah, I mean, I do hope that a lot of Asian parents, it's not just only Koreans too, right? Like Hong Kongers especially too. They do have a certain level of that expectation coming from parents. And I think that's what also kind of made us the poster immigrant group as well, right? And like the Korean saying is 사자, right?
It's like
jobs that have the word 사 in it.
Oh yeah,
right?
yeah.
So 의사, 변호사, 회계사, 목사, right? Whatever.
Wait,
it is,
목사?
right?
목사 star?
Hey, his dad's a 목사.
No. At a certain point, I feel like back in my parents' day, like
It was
being a
respected.
pastor was somewhat respected as well.
Again,
right?
for the audience, it was what, doctor, lawyer,
doctor, lawyer, accountant,
and
right?
pastor.
Pastor, whatever it is, right? 전문직, right? Or like specialty expertise, right? But I never subscribed to that, right? And so like when I told my parents I'm going to quit my job, they're like, "Are you a professional 퇴직사?" Right?
Yeah.
Like are you like a professional quitter?
Oh wow,
right? Yeah,
they called you that?
Yeah, right.
Dude, that's harsh.
And for me, I
Sounds like
laughed it
something
off.
I would say to
right?
I do say to my kids.
Right, I'll be like, ha 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 ha. At least I'm an expert in something, right? And then I kind of usually laughed it off, right? but that pressure, right? Again, being maknae, being a guy, right? So like when I used to travel as well, like my parents didn't really say much, right? And they're just like, just don't get killed, right? Kind of thing.
Can I tell you an anecdote? I think I told you before, but even today, when I go to visit my parents at Daegu, my dad says in Korean sometimes like, I wish you like 그냥 집에서 뒹굴뒹굴 하고 있었으면 좋겠다. I wish you just roll around the house.
Just not stay home,
and not
right?
like have a job.
Right.
I'm like,
To you?
Yeah. Like,
Oh, that's so heartwarming. No?
it is heartwarming, but also like mortifying at the same time. Like,
Wait, why?
Cause like he's
Do
like,
you see that as him like just being like giving up on you, just being like, oh, this guy?
No, it means he
No.
wants your presence around and he
Yeah,
wants you to
but-
be free and have fun.
yeah, but he's also saying that I wish you just don't work and just like roll around the house. Meaning like he doesn't really care that much. Like, I'm like that. Like how are you? How do you think of me? Like,
Oh wow, I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
I
see
feel
what
like
you're saying.
everyone has those kind of like 상처, right? Or those like hurts, right?
yeah,
like
yeah,
deep
yeah.
down,
Yeah.
where you know something that could be
Yeah.
meant as right.
We just need to turn your profession into a sa, like design of sa.
like, I think he would say the same thing even if I were to be a doctor. Like I don't care. Just stay home.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's so interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, I have a lot of parenting work I need to do
Right.
because I think I'm not. I want to raise kids like us, right? Maybe a little free spirited, feel independent, do our own thing. But definitely on our oldest, at least, I'm very like. Anyway, those what did you call it? The childhood hurts.
Just 상처.
Sanchos.
Right?
I'm
Yeah,
giving him a lot of sanchos. Okay. Any of these you want to talk about?
I mean, I want to talk about Hong Kong a little bit more, but I think
Yeah, we didn't talk much.
Yeah. One thing I wanted to ask about Hong Kong. Maybe you can't really relate to this anymore because you don't live here, but I always wondered what is the current sentiment of Hong Kong people in relation to like China and everything.
Right.
Because like they had like that protest
Right.
and all. Did they like kind of give up or like what is it like?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think I could speak to it in any kind of from a Hong Konger's perspective or.
By the way, is that the official term of Hong Kong people?
Yeah, Hong
Hong
Konger. Yeah, Hong
Oh.
Konger. Now, Hong Kongers have a certain amount of pride about not being mainland Chinese. Okay, so I think that's why there is more connectivity to their British roots, right? And so it's still very traditional in a certain way that it upholds common law, which is the British law. There's a certain amount of pride that comes with being British more than there was Chinese, right? When I got there in 2010, and the Chinese financial market was just starting to open up. So there was something called China Connect, and Hong Kong was seen as a gateway into China. And so I feel like at the time it was very beneficial for Hong Konger to adopt like, oh, you know, we are this gateway to China and blah blah blah, but we are also very super free marketed that we apply common law and you know, and like the Hong Kong dollar is somewhat pegged to the US dollar, right? So there is some kind of financial reasoning, right, for Hong Kong or its identity. When I was there for the years that I was, there was a big transition between teaching Mandarin or Putonghua, which is the mainland Chinese language, in schools. So there was a lot of backlash about us not being mainland Chinese, right? So again, it kind of goes back to the not something, right? And when China starts to take more censorship and more control over certain areas of people's lives, I feel like that's where this whole like explosion kind of came out, right? At the end of the day, Hong Kong is a rounding error to oh, sorry for saying that, but like, but honestly, 7 million.
So are you saying compared to China's what population?
Population,
or GDP
right?
or what?
Yeah. Oh,
Economically, it's a beast.
yeah,
You know?
it's a powerhouse
Yeah.
economically, but I think in terms of population, where it's
just
like 7
population.
million, 6.5 million to 1.4 billion people. At the end of the day, it is a rounding error, right? But I think that there was that transition between like we're not mainland Chinese and there being a lot of anti-China sentiment, right, into it progressively going into protests, right? So when people's democracy kind of felt impeded, right, they never had it to begin with, right? But they did feel that their
Why do you think so though? That they never had it to begin with.
Yeah. I mean, they never really kind of had it, right?
Because they didn't have like voting rights. And all that.
Right.
Yeah.
But I think once it comes to censorship, which was an invasion into the free market, right, or in terms of what you could say and whatnot, I think that's when like their Cantonese culture kind of really started to come out, or their anti-China sentiment started to come out. Now, when I got to Korea right after COVID, there was that there was something called NSL, which is the National Security Law, which now kind of codified and made into law certain things that you can and cannot do. And
Sorry, that's a legislation passed in Hong Kong?
no, passed in China.
Okay.
Passed in
Concerning
China,
Hong Kong?
Concerning Hong Kong,
Okay.
right?
Replacing the rule of the common British law it had before?
I don't know the exact legal
Okay,
part
sure,
of it,
sure,
right?
yeah, yeah.
But
Okay. But it was Chinese legislation
yeah, right?
impacting Taiwan.
Right.
Hong Kong.
Hong Kong,
Okay.
right? And they did put politicians in that are super pro Beijing, right?
Yeah.
So before, I don't think that Beijing really kind of cared about Hong Kong, to be honest, right? But as it started, moving in that kind of way, I felt, so the sentiment is not as, there's no Hong Kong identity anymore. And I think that that's what's a little unfortunate, right? So like, remember, I don't know if you guys watched like Rush Hour. Right?
Yeah, of
like
course.
Rush Hour 2 was when they went back to Hong
Like
Kong.
In the Mood
right?
for Love is the
right.
like,
So there's a certain
my image of
charm,
Hong Kong.
right?
Yeah.
So there's a certain charm to Hong Kong. There's a buzz to Hong Kong. And there's something that's very proudly Hong Kong. And that I feel like has been compromised or
Going down a little bit.
Yeah. So like when I go, like it doesn't feel like the same anymore, right? But I think the country went through a lot. Obviously, like COVID restrictions, right? One of the strictest in the world, right? And and I think that kind of really destroyed a lot of Hong Kong, because a lot of expats also left right around that time.
Yeah.
And then that's when a lot of mainland Chinese came in, right? So like a long time ago, it used to be, if you speak Mandarin, then it was very beneficial, right?
Oh, because it was more rare.
Yeah, right?
But now it's more common.
But now, it was just, or maybe not more of the common thing, but it's just like, like they're mainland Chinese. Right?
Oh, I see. This
Yeah,
okay.
yeah,
The
right.
general perception was kind of good and favorable.
Yeah.
But now it's like, you're
Yeah,
from
yeah,
mainland.
yeah.
Or, I see. That makes sense. I might have missed it earlier. Are you saying in schools now in Hong Kong they're not teaching Cantonese, and they're all moving over to just Mandarin?
No. I think Mandarin has become a more required part of education.
And before it was more kind of optional. Rare.
I think that there are different elements. I'm not too sure about this, right? But I do think that there are British schools, there are international schools, and there are local schools.
Got
and
it.
the local schools usually don't have a required Putonghua requirement, but now I think
Now
they
they're
do.
starting to adopt.
Yeah.
Okay.
What's the perception of Hong Kong in Korea? Because a long time ago, Korea, Hong Kong. So my take of Hong Kong from Korean's perspective is like they have this romantic
Yes.
thing about Hong Kong,
Yes.
and then they come to Hong Kong, they're like, man, it's so hot and so expensive, and the food sucks.
Really?
Right? Yeah.
I don't
Food
know.
sucks. Is that a perception?
No, food is amazing. I've never been to Hong Kong. That's the perception. at
Right.
least.
But the food's amazing. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyways, so I think for Koreans, the first perception of Hong Kong is through the late 80s up until like the early
Right.
90s, about like when Hong Kong culture was such a thing.
Yeah.
It's almost the equivalent of like the K culture these days. Like those movies, like noir movies.
Oh yeah.
And like Wong Kar-wai, those kind of movies, and they depict a very, I don't even know, I've never been to Hong Kong, but like that kind of very fantastic. There's something about it,
With
right?
the energy.
There's a tremendous energy in
Yeah.
Hong Kong. Yeah.
It's kind of like very vintage, but also very like cyberpunk at the same
Yeah.
time. Kind of that kind of weird, like cool vibe.
Yeah.
Is at least for me, and I think this somewhat translates to the general sentiment or perception of what people think about Hong Kong. I don't know if we can put it on air, but there is this term called "Hong Kong 간다." It's like somewhat like a sexual term. Basically, if you're like in an ecstatic state sexually, they call it
What?
they call it Hong Kong 간다. We're going to Hong Kong. As if that's like the image of
it's
Hong
like
Kong, like
the-
fireworks.
Yeah,
and
it's like the bedazzling neon lights of Hong Kong,
okay.
right? It's like this is definitely not going on air. But
I'm honestly still
But-
confused. If it's not going on air, can we just be straightforward?
yeah,
Like
so
climaxing is called where I'm going to Hong Kong.
orgasms
Okay.
Yeah.
are considered another colloquial word for orgasms.
Hong Kong
is-
간다?
Yeah, I'm going to Hong Kong.
right? And it's from
Wait,
the
I want to include this in some way. 'cause
Yeah,
that's
let's
a fun
include. I think it's
reference.
fine.
and I think it's a bedazzling lights of
Yeah.
Hong Kong,
Yeah.
right? And so
that's
yeah.
that's basically I think a good understanding of how Koreans
Oh, wow.
thought of Hong Kong.
Okay.
Now I don't know what the current sentiment is. I mean, basically it's a little bit tainted by like the recent news, and like we've like seen like neighbor blog posts of like people going to Hong Kong and saying like exactly what you said. It's not like before. I don't know because I've never been there, but yeah, like a very developed
yeah.
country.
So Hong Kong's very run down, right? Like the closest other Western city I could kind of think about that's close to Hong Kong is kind of Berlin. I don't know if you guys been to Berlin. No? So Berlin at the time with East and West Germany, right? There are parts of the city that's like very run down but very cool, right? So like in Hong Kong, you're not gonna see like there are parts of Hong Kong that's shiny, you know, glamorous, right? And stuff like that. And then there are parts of Hong Kong that is very, very rundown. And there is a certain charm to that rundownness as well, right? So there are neighborhoods called like Mongkok, for example. It's a very trendy part of town, right? But super crowded, right? Just very rundown physically, right?
Yeah.
But I think one thing about Hong Kong that I noticed among Koreans is when I was there was a big population of Koreans that started to come to Hong Kong. The Korean actually
To
Hong
live?
Kong, yeah, so, or to work, right? I think Hong Kong was a destination for successful Koreans, right? Because the work was good, right? So the pay was good in Hong Kong. It's close enough to fly to Korea at a last moment, right? But just far enough that you're away from like from 시댁, right? for example, like in-laws, right?
House.
Yeah, and so I think there was this desire to want to go to Hong Kong, right? And coming from Hong Kong was a certain kind of seal of success, right? So I remember when I was first in Hong Kong, in my community, I was the only Korean, right? I had this one other Hyung who was like the most whitewashed American, right? So like
Also
Daniel,
Gyopo.
yeah, super Gyopo, like second gen,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Born in the US, right? And me. And so like
Was it my friend?
so it was before Psy, right? So it was before Gangnam Style and like when K-culture started kicking. So like my Hong Kong friends' perception of Korea was between the two of us, right? And we're like, yo, we're terrible representations of Korean culture,
Yeah.
right? But there were two things. One, there was a lot of expectations and excitement about Korean culture coming from people in Hong Kong. And there was also a big seal of approval that people felt, right? That if they made it to Hong Kong, that they kind of made it, you know? Yeah, but I think the Korean population kind of grew over the last few years. And
I see.
I don't know what it's like now, right? Yeah.
Also, personally, my perception of Hong Kong is also influenced by my friends at grad school. Like, two of my best friends were all from Hong Kong, one of which was 2-year roommates with me. I felt like there's something about Hong Kong people that makes me easily bond as a Korean. I don't know what that is. Like, mainland Chinese people, they have like and also Japanese people, I think they have very, very strong characters that not in a bad way nor a good way, that's kind of like difficult to be like very close friends with. Whereas like I feel like Hong Kong people, like by the way, I only know two of them, but they're very like, I think maybe it's like their culture and state of development of their country and like the things that they enjoy and whatnot. I felt more easy for us to bond. Yeah, that's my just personal perception.
I want to throw that over to you because
I have a lot of friends from Hong Kong.
yeah, like, well, we call them CBCs over in Canada, right? But I guess CBCs.
Chinese-born Canadians?
No.
What's CBC?
Canadian-born Chinese.
Canadian-born Chinese.
Right?
Okay.
And
So full second gen.
yeah.
Okay.
Right. So I felt more close to them than I did with Koreans because
100%, yeah.
I think that there's a part of Koreans that like I knew that I was never going to be a part of, right? So there's that gated, you know, whatever. But I felt like Chinese were my proxy, like Asian proxy group of friends, right?
Yeah, for sure. Growing up, most of my friends were, I can't say most, but most of my Asian friends were, of course, Asian American. I don't think I met a proper like Korean until college with the 유학생s.
Right.
And there was too much of a language barrier, etc. But yeah, I always found a great deal of community in the Asian American community, primarily Chinese, a lot of Taiwanese, some Hong Kong, right? So yeah, for sure that was my like safest community. It felt like growing up. Yeah.
But it's interesting because you would have thought that it would be Korean, right? But I think that there's this level of like 유학생 group, right? So like the Koreans would come to the Western institutions,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
They usually kind of keep to themselves as well, right?
For sure. Yeah, I think
Yeah.
Korea just developed too much in the 70s, 80s, and 90s.
Right.
Yeah, those 30 years, Korea looks totally different.
Right.
And I think the language barrier, of course, played a big part too.
Right.
But I never, as much as I tried, I never really ever felt integrated or close with UXings. Except the ones who spoke perfect English.
Right.
But they were more American than Korean at that point.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No.
And Hong Kong, I don't know. I don't have a strong perception of them. Yeah. Nothing.
Did you? Oh,
I thought they're friendly.
Here's another
Yeah.
question for you. When you thought Chinese, right?
Yeah.
Did you always think, like for me, like the limited exposure to Chinese people I had,
Yeah.
were actually Hong Kongers,
Oh, interesting.
right? So I didn't know that those. It's kind of like my white people and Jewish people thing.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
was like,
yeah.
oh, if you're Chinese, right?
I'd say growing up, it was pretty 50-50 between Taiwanese and mainland Chinese.
Okay.
I did have a handful of Hong Kong friends, but they were honestly, they were all the same to me.
Right.
It wasn't until I was in high school and I started to understand like the tension between China
Right,
and Taiwan. I was like, oh, whoa, I had no idea. But yeah, they were all just Chinese to me. Yeah. Hong Kong people, again, I didn't even realize Mandarin and Cantonese were different or they were different dialects until, let's say, like middle high school. I think when I
Right.
first
Right.
realized
Yeah.
they don't all speak Chinese.
Yeah.
And now I know there's Mandarin and Cantonese.
Yeah. So it's kind of the same thing for me too,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Because again, majority of my Chinese friends were actually
From Hong Kong.
From Hong Kong, right? And so when I tell them, "Oh, you're Chinese," they're
Yeah.
like, "No, we're Hong Kongers," right? And you're like, "Wow." you
Oh,
know,
I
that's-
thought it was the same. Yeah. I will say, again, the Hong Kong people I know, they're super friendly, generally very sociable and outgoing.
Yeah.
And yeah, they're very easy to get along with because of that.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree.
I also feel like they're very cultured. Is that true? Maybe it's my
I think
just
so.
two friends.
I think they're cultured.
Yeah, I think so. I think that they're like a few generations ahead of Koreans in terms of global cultures.
Yeah.
Just again from what they kind of grew up with, right? So when you walk through the streets of Hong Kong, you will see every single ethnic group. It was like Toronto for me, right? And so I think that that's something that was worth celebrating, right, for Hong Kongers. And you know, they have their, like, for me, any well-traveled Asian long time ago were actually Hong Kongers, right? Long time ago for me, right? More than Koreans. Yeah.
I just remember one day coming back home when I was in grad school after watching Spider-Man, and I told my Hong Kong roommate that I watched Spider-Man, and his first reaction was like, "You watch Spider-Man and you call yourself an architect?" I was like, okay.
Wait, I don't see the connection.
I don't
Well,
get it either.
I'm
Oh, because it's too mainstream.
Yeah, it's like too like you don't watch like
basic.
art house.
right. Okay. So you're not
More
indie enough.
indie
You're
films.
nice.
Yeah.
Okay. Interesting. Yeah.
It's so funny that you didn't even get it.
I was like, well, I like Spider-Man.
Right.
Yeah, I think you're now making Hong Kong sound like a very desirable place to live for me. I think there is something to that. Just again, openness, diversity, and for me, it's, you know, I read a headline recently. I think the percent of foreigners living in Korea has never been higher than it is today, and I think it is trending upward. And so it gives me some hope in the future that as Korea also becomes more diverse, it can become that beautiful.
Yes.
Cosmopolitan melting pot type environment
Yeah.
that other people would be like, oh, Korea is such a warm, welcoming place
Right.
for anyone.
Right.
I think we could all agree today that's not the case. Not to blame Korea, it's just so homogenous right now. But yeah, I realized we used to have a thing where we asked every guest to identify themselves 1 to 10
Right.
on the Korean American scale. I guess we can call it the Korean Canadian scale,
Right.
but I'd like to keep it the Korean American scale.
We'll say Korean American.
Yeah, because
Yeah,
I think
okay,
American. I think
yeah.
Canada and America is maybe close enough. But yeah, so 1 being very, very Korean, and 10 being very, very Western, let's say, or American, Canadian, etc. Like, where do you identify on that scale? Because you've lived 2 decades in Canada,
Yeah.
1 decade in Hong Kong,
and
half a decade in Korea now.
I will put myself exactly at 5.
Exactly at 5.
Yeah.
Oh wow, that
Yeah.
Have we had a
that's
pure
a
5?
lot Korean than I thought.
Oh, really?
Yeah, definitely. I think I'm a lot more Korean than my friends kind of expect. And I also kind of put this like scale, right, in my own life, right? So when I talk about like compatibility in a partner, right, I'm just like, I wonder where she has to be in this scale, right? But for me, I think I do comfortably put myself in about 5. I'll even probably say more 4 or 5,
Oh,
right?
wow.
More than a 5 or
Wow.
6,
Wow.
right? Yeah, I'll put myself in a 4 or 5. Yeah.
Where does all that Korean come in? From your household?
I think so, or just like the common communities that I'm kind of
I
in
see.
now, right? I think in Hong Kong, it was my first time kind of meeting like real Koreans, right? And so
What was that like? Sorry.
Oh yeah, it was just like wow. Like for me, my experience with Koreans were either Korean immigrants like me, or 유학생s in college. But when I got to Hong Kong, I met people who were like born, raised, educated, everything in Korea. And so like talking to them, I felt like that was a very like there's a whole other people group that is on the scale, right? That is actually on the 2 and 3s,
Yeah.
right? That I never
That's
knew.
exactly me.
Yeah, right.
2.5.
Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah. Okay. Daniel has to go
Yeah.
right now. So
Again, the theme of the podcast is I'm a bad parent, but I gotta run to pick up my kids.
Yeah, no, please.
All right.
Me first.
No, Byeong, thanks so much for coming on.
Oh, thank you.
Sorry for the abrupt ending.
No problem.
Yeah, we're gonna have a part 2.
Part
Yeah.
2? Yeah. Cool.
But yeah, let's wrap.
Yeah.
Anything you want to say before we close?
I'll share next time. So
Okay.
make sure that you get me back.
Oh,
Nice.
Yeah. That'd be good.
Okay, as always, if you'd like to support our podcast, please share us with a friend. Wait, what's funny?
I'm just so surprised that you're actually gonna say this.
It's okay.
Because we don't have to.
Yeah. Oh, I see. Yeah, share us with a friend you might think would like our content. And also you can support us on Patreon. That's it. I'm going to abbreviate it today. So dumb.
Cool.
Okay, that's it for this
All
week. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye. But Hong Kong is such a great example of coexistence and just how like everything is the same, and that everything is the same from just like
Oh, shoot. Sorry. I don't think I think I was supposed to pick up the kids. Hold on. I need to answer that. Shoot.
sorry.
This goes in the bloopers.